Okay, committee, I think that works a little bit better now. Thanks for your patience. I'm going to give you a quick update on Cindy. She's still not with us today, but she's no longer in the hospital, so things are getting better for her. We hope to have her back maybe next Monday. And I would ask the interested parties in our bills to please be nice to my assistant and quit being so darn demanding. Come to me first, please. Thank you. All right, so we don't have a committee assistant in the room, and I don't have an agenda. So what are we doing?
Yes, you do.
So what do we do?
So I believe that all the testimony is on the S drive. The first order of business is going to be the bill hearing, and it is on bill number HB 2035. And Charles, can you can stay seated if you'd like. If you'd rather stand up, that's fine, but can you give us a brief understanding of what the bill does? All right.
Thank you, Chairman, members of the committee. HB 2035 amends a statute to provide that ranching activities will include trail rides for purposes of inclusion in the meaning of agritourism activity. And that's important because that means that the land would be able to be valued as agricultural land for purposes of property tax. Ranching activities and other agritourism activities are included within the meaning of land devoted to agricultural use. And as the committee probably is aware, the Kansas Constitution requires that agricultural land be valued upon the basis of its agricultural income or agricultural productivity, not market value. The committee might note that the changes that allowed agritourism to be valued as agricultural land occurred actually last year in 2024, HB 410, and that provided that change, that benefit for the agritourism industry in Kansas. Stand for questions.
Okay, committee, so those of you that have been with us for a while are familiar with the agriculture classification when we were dealing with wineries and how counties were trying to classify them as commercial, and their property tax would go from $8,000 to $100,000. And we fixed that glitch a few years back, and I believe this is along the same lines. Does anybody have any questions on the bill for the reviser? Representative Sutton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Charles, would trail riding fit under the definition of agritourism as it stands, or are we going to have to change that?
So, Representative, this bill does change that. It adds trail riding to the definition of ranching activities, actually, which is a part of the definition of agritourism.
Very good. All right.
Activity. So I apologize if that wasn't clear. But actually, that's a good question. I mean, one could argue that maybe it would already fall within that definition.
Excellent. All right. Thank you.
I believe we're just trying to clarify the law to protect the agribusiness, agritourism. I've had several questions on whether or not this would create some sort of loophole, like if somebody were to buy a horse, or my wife likes those little hobby horses. If we got one of those, would that qualify? Would that qualify our house for agriculture?
So, Chairman, there is a body of law which sort of addresses agritourism. It requires registration of the operator, registration of the land, registration of the activity. So I'd have to look, but I guess the question would be, would it fall within those statutes?
Okay, so somebody couldn't just have land, buy a couple of horses, and say, now we're classified as agriculture, and you can't tax me on my house anymore as a...
I don't believe so, but I'd have to look to make sure. But, you know, there is that process, and there's oversight, so.
Okay, that probably gives those people more comfort, so. Representative Christy Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just looked at this statute recently, and I believe that you have to carve out, your local county appraiser will carve out your residential farmhouse or your residence, and so you would not, if you live there, no, you wouldn't, you would still have the residential 11.5.
Any further questions for the reviser? Charles?
Yeah, that's a good point brought up by the representative. One thing I might note is that the definition for agritourism does actually include I believe it includes temporary or let's see here. All land and buildings, whether permanent or temporary, that are utilized for such agritourism activity. So, you know, potentially that would exclude a residence because the representative is correct. In other statutes, it does exclude, you know, a residence. But so I guess if the residence would be utilized for agritourism activity, it might be included. But that's a good point.
That would just go back to the people that, the Department of Agriculture to make that determination. Okay. All right. Any further questions? All right, seeing none. Thanks, Charles. Okay, Chairman, I really don't have a itinerary, so who would you like to introduce whoever you want to go first? I really don't have anyone's name or anything.
Mr. Chairman,
so I apologize.
if it's okay, I'd like to talk very quickly and then hand it over to Ms. Tanya Theis, who can speak much more eloquently than me to the impact that this would have.
Okay, go ahead and introduce yourself to those that don't know you, but I think everybody does, but just in case.
So I'm
Watching from home.
Pat Proctor. I serve the people of Leavenworth, Fort Leavenworth, Kickapoo, and High Prairie here in the Kansas House. I'd like to very briefly talk about some of the questions that you raised and then talk about why I think it's important for us to do this and then hand it over to Tanya, who can talk to you about the personal impact. The agricultural land use that's kind of just above this in the statute makes it pretty clear that you have to be doing agricultural activities on the land for it to be even to fall under the statute. So I don't think if somebody bought a horse and kept it in their backyard downtown, it wouldn't count, because one of the things is it can't be in an incorporated municipality. So I think that it would be impossible to kind of use this as a loophole. So I just as for why I think this is so important, our population here in Kansas is getting more and more urbanized. More and more people are moving out of rural areas and into cities. And we're starting to see a divide here in the state, not between Republican and Democrat, but between rural and urban residents. And so anything that we can do to encourage folks to get out of the city and out into our rural areas and enjoy the beauty of rural Kansas, I think is a positive. And so that's, I think that pricing these activities like trail rides or wineries or whatever out of business so that we don't have those opportunities for folks to get out into rural Kansas and see our state and see how folks out there live, I think is negative. So I hope that you'll look favorably on this bill, and I stand for questions at the appropriate time.
All right, committee, any questions for Chairman Proctor? Representative Hsu.
Thank you, both Mr. Chairs. Do you have any idea, just kind of off the top of your head, how big this industry is in the state right now, or at least in your district? I'm sure you have interest in that.
Watkins Sea Ranch in my district is the only place I'm aware of in my district that does trail rides. Tanya's going to talk to you about some of the stuff they do out there, but it's just a family ranch that wants everybody to experience ranch life, and so they do trail rides, camping out on their grounds and all that, and they were doing fine until the assessor came out, and now they're in danger of not being able to do that activity and bring folks from my urban areas of my district out to rural Leavenworth County and experience that part of our county.
All right, I'm not seeing any other questions. Who would you like to come next?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like, if you'd like, I'd like to have Tanya Theis come up and talk to you about her ranch.
Thank you. Welcome to committee.
Good afternoon. How are you? Very nerve-wracking, so if I stumble around a little bit, please forgive me. Okay, so I'm Tanya Theis. I was born and raised in Leavenworth County. I grew up on a very small 10-acre farm. We had horses, a few pigs, and some chickens. We bought that 10 acres from my great-grandfather, and in 1995, my father started boarding horses and teaching riding lessons. I worked with him until he retired, and then I took over the ranch. In our county, we were never asked to produce like a special use permit because we had owned the land since 1969. They said we were just grandfathered in. So we never really had any problems with the county or the state because we had just kind of started where we were. But in 2002, I married my husband, Jerry Theis. He's a veterinarian. He's also a farmer. His parents established a family farm in 1952. They have registered Angus cows, row crops, and raise pigs. My husband, children, and I are very active in agriculture. He is currently on the board of directors for the American Angus Association, and I am the current American Angus Auxiliary President. We have raised 4 children through 20 years of 4-H, FFA, and the Kansas Junior Angus Association and the National Junior Angus Association. I've had 2 daughters serve as Miss American Angus and also one as Miss Kansas Angus. When we decided to expand our horse business, we bought 80 acres. Leavenworth County is a very hard place to buy land. We've got Fort Leavenworth right there, and so it's just not a place where you can just go out and buy land next door. So we had to move across the county. When we did that, I gave up my right for being grandfathered into anything. And they then said that horses were not qualified as agriculture. So everything that I had done since 1995, they said was no longer agriculture, and I'd have to apply for special permits. They wanted me to pave the road. They wanted me to, it was going to cost me almost $30,000 just to even qualify to get the permit. And that didn't seem possible, knowing that we keep cattle and horses on the property. And so Watkins Ranch, we offer riding lessons, trail rides, camps, and seasonal camping. As a matter of fact, I was just talking to Pat, and I had someone text me and say, we just found out you don't have electricity in your tent, so we're going to have to cancel, and we're going to need our money back. I haven't had a chance to respond to her yet, but I don't know what they thought they were getting when they rented a tent to camp in. So I'm assuming they're from Kansas City. I'm not sure, but they're not from the rural area at all. I said, it's a tent and you're on 80 acres, but that's what I deal with when I leave here. One of my favorite stories is watching a young boy at one of our summer camps brush and brush and brush. He brushed a horse for nearly an hour, and I finally said, hey, we're going to have to move on to another activity. And he almost started crying. He was so upset, and he said, I haven't heard it moo yet. And I was like, it just totally took me back, because here's this little boy who comes to horse camp, and he was waiting for this horse to moo. So it really opened my eyes to the fact that we have a lot of educating to do. We're in a very unique position in Leavenworth County. We are within 40 minutes of downtown Kansas City. We're also within 15 minutes of Fort Leavenworth. So we have a very diverse group of people that like to come out to our ranch. We've had people from Great Britain that may be serving at Fort Leavenworth at the time, and then we'll have people from downtown Kansas City come out. It's always amazing, but it's always educational. I make sure that you never leave the ranch without feeding a horse, washing a horse, figuring out what we're going to do with the poop that they left behind. So it's definitely something where when they come, they become a part of what's happening at the ranch. And now I'm totally off track. So I guess really I'm about done. I guess if there's just anything that you need from me to help this happen, I would love to help. If you have any questions, I'm ready. So
can you refresh? Did they reclassify you, and that's why you had to put in roads? And did they also change your
Well,
classification?
they said because we were
property tax?
using it for dual property use. The cattle were there, but now that we had a business on it, the horse ranch business, they wanted to say, nope, you can't do that without a special permit. And then this is where your taxes are going to go, and this is what we're going to need for you to even qualify to earn the special permit.
And what did your taxes do? Did they?
They were going to go up. We didn't, I stopped the process at the time. I'll be honest, we're just kind of, the lady I spoke to at the county said this is something that we're in the process of trying to fix. Fly low, keep your insurance paid, you know, but I don't like working my business that way because I want to do the right thing. I want to pay the taxes I need to pay, but I want it to definitely be considered to be an ag business if that's what we're teaching and doing.
Okay. Representative Corbett, you have a question?
Thanks, Chairman. So what are they, do you have any like permanent structures that's commercial or you're doing something with?
At this time, no. As far as the barn, it is the barn that we actually feed the animals out of. So it's not something where they just walk in. We don't have like a shop. We don't have I mean, we've set up lean-tos and picnic tables, and when people come out, they are just coming out to enjoy the outdoor. But we don't have like a commercial come in and buy a T-shirt kind of thing. So they're coming out to the ranch. The barn that we use is 100% used for our ag purposes. I mean, they use it to park the tractor in, to put the cows in when it's too cold to stay outside if they're going to have a baby overnight. So
They're taxed all your acreage as commercial.
they want to, yeah. Well, I think so, but okay,
I think you've come to the right place, ma'am.
perfect.
Representative Laura Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Tanya, I don't know if you remember me, but
I
I'm
do
one of the
remember
city
you.
families that have come out, and I don't think it was my son that was waiting for the horse to moo, but
No, he was not.
but yes, I've actually been out to Tanya's ranch.
We've got a
and-
picture that we took
we do.
and sent to Pat.
But I do think, I mean, I don't think you touched on it, but your engagement with the youth in the community as well. It seems like to be a safe place for them, and so I don't know if you want to talk about that at all too.
Yes, we do provide a lot of summer camps, day camps. Honestly, as crazy as it sounds, I think we talked about this, was we provide a place where people that want to, well, they think they're coming to work. The kids call it work, but I have a program where kids can come out as long as the parents and I have discussed what time they're getting dropped off and what time they're getting picked up, and they bring their own food. They come out and they might stay for 6 or 7 hours a day and they work for the ranch. So they will feed, water, catch, groom, help with the birthday parties, help with the kids. And it's kind of always been our philosophy. I tell people that when kids especially, when their feet hit the ground at the ranch, I want them to know that there's a purpose in what they're doing there and that they have a reason and something to do. It's not just coming out to just to mess around. They're coming out and well, Mom, I have to feed, I have to water, I have to clean the feed bucket, I have to make sure that this is done. We also have a really big group of people that homeschool that come out, and so they take like Tuesdays and Fridays, and basically they run the ranch those days. So it gives people a chance. We provide a location for people that say, hey, we can't live at Fort Leavenworth and not have a yard. Can we come out and put a garden in? Can we take care of your horses? And of course, I'm going to tell them yes, because it was cold last week, feeding and watering those horses. But this is what we do. And I mean, I just think there's a little bit of a disconnect with what's going on, even honestly in Leavenworth County, as opposed to a lot of the other counties in the state. I think that Leavenworth County is taxing way harder for these kind of businesses. And to go back to that point on, someone had asked, are there other businesses in our county? There's no one that really gives trail rides, but there are several people that board horses and teach lessons. So that's kind of there's probably maybe 4 other places that do that. So I think that was you that asked that question.
Any other, Representative Sutton?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Proctor, that horse was mute. That's why it never mooed. That's right. But I did have a question. The permit that they were asking, that they were going to require you to get, did they give you a name of that permit? What sort of a permit they were going to require of you?
Oh, they just call it a special use permit for a business. That's what they call it.
All right, well, that's kind of a broad category. Well,
Right, and I
dig
can
into
do
that
a
a little
little bit more checking into that if you wanted to talk, or.
you have someone who
And
can do
we've
that
got
for you.
some, we've got a very good county commission that just kind of took over this year, so I'm quite excited to get a few more things done that way. And again, we're not trying to not pay our fair share, but I don't think they've stopped and looked at what we're bringing into the county. I don't cook food out there, so if someone comes in from Kansas City and then they get hungry while they're there for 2 hours, I send them right into the city of Leavenworth and give them a list of about 10 restaurants. So, I mean, I don't think they realize sometimes what is going back into their pool. So,
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any further questions for Ms. Tice? Melton, Representative Melton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So is your land owned personally or by a corporation?
it's owned by my husband and I personally.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I'm seeing no further questions. Thanks so much, and I thought you did a wonderful job.
Thank you.
You said you were nervous, but I couldn't detect it, so great job.
I'll breathe when we get outside. Thank you.
All right, so, Mr. Chairman, did you bring anyone else to testify? That's it? All right. I do see that there is written testimony from Kansas Livestock Association. Make sure you read that, and proponent or neutral to testimony. Is there anyone else in the room that wants to testify as a proponent? All right, we'll close. Charles Reimer.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to note in response to Representative Williams' point that if she is correct, if you look at the bill, page 4, subsection H, the county appraiser is directed to differentiate land for residential purposes from land for agricultural purposes.
Thanks for clearing that up. Is there any one here that wishes to testify neutral to this bill? Seeing none, is there anyone, is there an opponent that wants to testify good luck as an opponent to this bill? All right, seeing none. All right, thanks, Mr. Chairman. And we'll close the bill hearing on HB 2035. Next thing we have on the agenda is a presentation from Higher Paths. Welcome to committee, and please introduce yourself. And I think they have some handouts that are coming around. All right.
Today. My name is Kristen Brighton. I'm a small business owner in Manhattan called my company is called New Boston Creative Group. We are a 14-person marketing team that has taken on the challenge of trying to keep young people here in the state of Kansas. I have been very involved in the Manhattan community. In 2016, I had the pleasure of being the chair of the board of the Manhattan Area Chamber of Commerce. And in that role, I ended up going to a lot of economic development meetings where I was hearing repeatedly how we were not getting young people to go into the fields we need them to for the future of the state of Kansas. While back in 2016, we were very focused on skilled trades, such as the fact we needed more electricians and plumbers, that conversation has continued ever since, and now we're looking about the fact that we need people to go into data analysis and cybersecurity. So I have been thinking about this because since 2016, when I was hearing these messages over and over again, I knew that as a mom, and at this time I had a 12-year-old and a 14-year-old, I was not hearing about the need for our young people to go into these fields wearing my mom hat. I was hearing this wearing my business leader hat. And so I started to recognize the need in the state of Kansas for a marketing campaign to better introduce kids and their families to all of these jobs we really need them to do in order to keep them here in the state of Kansas after they finish their formal education. So in 2018, I actually reached out to members of from the agency, the Department of Commerce, and I said, hey, is anyone doing anything like this? And everybody said, no, we're working with industry to find out what skills they need our graduates to have. We're working with the Department of Education to revamp our CTE programs. We had launched the SB 155 program to help really revamp our career and technical education programs and develop all the dual credit programs that we were putting into our schools. But everybody I spoke to acknowledged the fact that if we weren't getting parents to be well informed about all of these new tools at their disposal, we would never get enough kids to really take advantage of them for them to reach their full potential. So I ended up speaking with people at the Department of Education, at the Board of Regents, at the Department of Agriculture. I spoke with a technical college president and somebody from Kansas Farm Bureau, and I asked them to all come to do a half-day retreat in the fall of 2018 to talk about what a marketing campaign like this could look like. We met a couple of times, we came up with the name Higher Paths, we came up with the key messaging, and I said, how do I get something like this off the ground? And they recommended that I go to private industry to get some seed funding to try to translate this idea from my crazy idea in my brain into something in reality. So I created a fund through the Kansas Rural Communities Foundation so that I could start a nonprofit to put this idea into reality. And I worked connections to get into some of our state's largest employers and somehow convinced three large employers to pledge $50,000 a year for 3 years to help me get this program started. And I would be remiss if I didn't give them credit, because we would not be here today without the investments of Textron Aviation, Stormont Vail Health, and the Kansas Contractors Association. So with some seed money, I started to build this program and was all set to launch in March of 2020. I don't need to go into what disrupted that. But in the fall of 2020, I was able to get back in front of those investors and say, hey, it's time for me to collect my next $50,000, but I would feel bad doing that if you didn't know about the progress that we had made. And so I shared with them the website that we had built, all of the social media that we'd been starting to build and put together and getting ready to launch. But what I needed from Stormont Vail and Textron to finish. And both healthcare and aviation, as you well know, were completely derailed at the beginning of the pandemic. So I got them excited, they helped me get what I needed, and we launched February 1st of 21. As part of this process, I did a baseline research study, which I'm going to tell you more about in a few minutes, but that began a relationship with KSDE. They helped me do some research so I could measure the perceptions of parents in the state of Kansas about post-secondary options and career opportunities for their children. So I got some really great data, and I'll show you that here in a second. But through the help of those investments and the relationship with KSDE, I was able to benefit from an ESSER grant with the idea of trying to encourage students to become more aware and take better advantage of technical education programs. That ESSER grant really helped us to build out our program into a statewide marketing campaign that ran through the middle of 24. Last year, we went through the entire process to continue our program and ended up being added in the governor's budget and went through the entire process. I got a little ahead of myself here. And we're in the governor's budget, approved through all the chambers, through all the budget allocation process. And at the very end, they instead chose to give me some leftover ESSER funds for us to continue Higher Paths with, allowed us to make a lot of enhancements and expansions of the program, which I'll allude to here real quickly. But now we're looking at what's next for our program. We're doing some really cool things, and I'd like to continue to grow this program as a public-private partnership, and I'm hoping all of you after today will be supportive. Ultimately, our goal is to keep kids in the state of Kansas. Our population as a state is pretty much stagnant, flat, and we cannot continue to bleed our talent. We got to learn how to keep them here, and we have to show them that as children growing up, they shouldn't think they have to go to either coast to have a successful career, that we can provide them with well-paying, high-demand jobs so that they can keep their families here and continue to grow the future of our state. So just to summarize, we were able to get a $1 million ESSER fund grant that will go through January of 26. And then we have 2 grants currently through the Kansas Department of Commerce that underwrite our Cool Careers video series. And we're doing some videos with the Kansas Department of Commerce's Office of Apprenticeship to better introduce apprenticeship programs to both youth, young adults, and to businesses. So we've really worked well to build a lot of partnerships in this area. We've been continuing to build relationships with private industry. Those are some of the entities that made investments in us this year because we have been very dedicated from the beginning for this to be a public-private partnership, as well as we're continuing to build relationships with private foundations to continue to help us grow. So just to give you a little quick rundown, sorry, I went too quick. All marketing campaigns need a target audience, and so we have always from the beginning identified our target audience, our primary audience as parents, with the idea that kids aren't going to go out and do career exploration on their own. So we want to inspire parents to bring career exploration into the home with the belief that from birth on through everyday interactions, parents introduce their kids to careers. So when they take their car in to get fixed, they have a repairman into their home, they go to the mall or they go to the doctor's office, whatever, they're learning about careers by the way their parents talk about those careers and the way they treat professionals in those different fields. So we have been working very hard to get our information in the hands of families so they will have conversations and show our information to the kids that live in those households. But we know we'll never engage every parent, and ultimately our goal is to get our content in front of young people. And so when we look at our secondary audiences, certainly young people under the age of 18, I don't care whether they're in public school, homeschool, private school, virtual school, all of them can access our materials for free because they're all available and online. We've worked very closely with the Kansas Department of Education and with teachers across the state because we know we'll never engage all parents in getting them to bring career exploration to the home. So we've been working hard to get our information into classrooms across the state and have built a great relationship. In fact, I'd like to say we even have some teachers who've become groupies of Higher Pass and follow us and help share all of our content. And in the 4 years that we've been running our campaign, through our data, we can see that we're reaching a lot of young adults in that 18 to 30-year-old market. We don't know of those 18 to 30-year-olds how many of them could be young teachers or young parents themselves, but we do see this as the second largest group of people who are using our content, and we know there's a lot of 18 to 30-year-olds who still don't maybe know what they want to do with their lives and maybe trying to do research to figure that out. So I feel like we are serving career information to a large swath of Kansas. And then geographically, I failed to mention this. We spend money only in the state of Kansas, but we do include the whole Kansas City metro area in our market because that is the labor shed that supports Kansas City, Kansas, and Overland Park and so forth. So our materials go just through the metro area in the state of Kansas. But if you look at the data of where people have accessed us, we are actually promoting Kansas businesses nationwide. A lot of people have stumbled upon our content, and it helped us to really get the word out about great job opportunities in Kansas, even beyond our borders. So what my team at New Boston Creative Group does is we create content that has to do with career exploration and introducing kids to high-demand jobs. Everything my team creates, so whether we're talking about a social media graphic, a video, an article, everything is created by my team and is posted on higherpass.com. We use organic and paid social media to get that information out in front of all of our target audiences. And then through the ESSER grants, we've been able to purchase some billboards, some broadcast TV and radio, as well as we are starting streaming media on February 1st. So ads that will run on Hulu and Prime and things like that. We're excited to see if that will continue to drive more people to our site. We also were able to create a partnership with this latest round of grants that we got this year that allowed us to turn our episodes into 30-minute programs, which are running on all the PBS affiliates in the state to introduce kids who are watching at home to many Kansas businesses and opportunities for careers right here in the Sunflower State, as well as we put in some money in our budget this year to develop partnerships and to take ourselves on the road to do some live events. We're doing a pilot this year in Hayes and Manhattan to get information in front of middle schoolers, as well as expanding our reach to more conferences to get our information in front of our audiences. We have 3 core messages in everything we do. The first is that we like to promote that there are a variety of paths to a successful career. I like to say we're agnostic. We don't have any post-secondary option we're promoting over the other. We believe that it's up to the child and their family to figure out what's the best path for them once they finish their formal secondary education. So we talk about on-the-job training programs, apprenticeships, technical colleges, community colleges, as well as four-year colleges and universities. We do not advocate for one over the other. It really depends on the child, how they learn, what their goal is, how much money they're willing to spend, how much debt they're willing to take on. That is a private decision that people need to do. We just want to show them all the new tools that are available in Kansas to help them reach that career opportunity. We talk about the fact that you can start a well-paying, in-demand career without first going on to college. A lot of the businesses who invested in our program have great programs for entry-level employees to get tuition reimbursement and continue to go to school on their employer's dime. So I'd like to advocate for the fact that if you want a four-year degree, you do not have to take student loans. There are other ways to get that training and education and move up in your career. And lastly, we try to take the stigma on that's still in many families, that the only way for their child to be successful is for them to go to a four-year university. We like to celebrate the fact that you can be just as successful to go to an apprenticeship or tech college as it is to go to Harvard. There's a lot of different factors that come into play as to whether or not you're going to be successful. And so we're really trying to erase that stigma that still might be in some families, that if her child doesn't matriculate straight to KU, K-State, or Fort Hays, that they're somehow doing something less than their peers who are. We have divided the Kansas economy into 12 primary industries. So you see we have everything from aviation and agriculture and animal health, clear through transportation, logistics, and distribution. We want to make sure that kids are aware of all of the new jobs that maybe their parents never even heard of because they've been created in the last 20, 30 years since their parents graduated from school themselves. So we really try to emphasize everything that's out there, but we put great emphasis in the careers that the Department of Labor has determined are high demand for the state of Kansas. We want kids to see that it makes sense to go into those high demand areas to help fill those holes so that they will have a leg up when they're looking for jobs in the future. So my team produces a lot of great content, and we promote a lot of programs that have received funding through the state from various post-secondary institutions. We've promoted the Kansas Promise Scholarship heavily. We have an entire section of our site full of activities for parents of things they can do at home or that teachers or after-school programs or grandparents can use to introduce careers to their kids. So we put a lot of information out in the world, hoping that some of it will stick. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about our Cool Careers video series. This is a series of short videos that are 5 to 10 minutes long. These are the ones that are running on PBS in a 30-minute version. And we have filmed these videos all over the state. They are designed for kids in 4th through 8th grade with the goal of getting kids excited about careers before they reach high school, so they take full advantage of CTE opportunities when they get into the high school years. If they wait till they're juniors or seniors, they're foregoing a lot of free opportunities to get training before they graduate. So you can see we've been all over the state. I like to joke we've been everywhere from Ulysses to Pittsburgh, and we've focused on careers all over different industries. And each of these episodes features a Kansas business and features a Kansas young person who's the host. For the sake of time today, I'm not going to play one of those videos, but please take a minute to check them out. They're really cool. Our most recent one is a civil engineer. We filmed in Olathe. The one before that was a family practice physician that KU Med asked us to do. That was filmed in Colby and really emphasized the need of more people to go into medical fields in our rural areas of the state. We listen to what is being discussed in the conversation and what we really need to fill those voids, and that's what we try to go out and put in front of our young people. So I want to real quick run through some of our outcomes. Last year when I was up here, I was continuously asked, and I've got some really great data because we were able to repeat our benchmark study this year that we did in 2019 when we were getting ready to start the program. But first, I just want to highlight some of the numbers that we've been able to achieve over the last 4 years. We've reached over 2 million people across 5 social media channels. We've got almost 300,000 people who have accessed our website close to 400,000 times. In this last year alone, we had more than 500,000 views on YouTube, and I'd like to emphasize that because we were recipients of that federal ESSER money, we were not signed off to spend that money until the middle of September, so almost all of that has just been between September and December. I would be very excited to see what we could do with a whole year of that kind of funding. And also since that grant began, we have seen huge increases in people revisiting our site, which shows me the importance of us having a strong media budget. Previously to getting this grant last year, we were operating in more on a $500,000 budget, and we were doing some great things, but we weren't reaching the numbers of people we were able to reach with this ESSER grant this year. We've had a 147% increase in our website visits, our sessions, 150% increase in users, 99% increase in Meta ads, 178% in LinkedIn ads. Those are for teachers primarily. And then like 1,200% increase in YouTube clicks because we put a lot more focus in YouTube promotion and media this year. But to talk about the parent perception findings, because I think this stuff is really key, it shows the Higher Paths has been part of a larger effort across the state to really get parents to be much more open to different post-secondary options and to really, I really feel like we've become an integral part of that team. So as I said, we did a study before we ever began. 19,000 parents took this survey. It was sent out through all the USDs in the state who were willing to participate. And we asked some really interesting questions, and we repeated that same study this year. The piece of data I really latched onto the first time we ran the study was that almost 63% of parents said that they hoped that their child went straight from high school to a four-year institution. In the 5 years that Higher Pass has been running, 4 of those years, we've seen an 11 percentage point drop in the percentage of parents who just want their kid to go straight on to a four-year school. So from 63% to 51.7%. That drop has equaled growth in all of the other post-secondary opportunities, a 9.5 percentage point increase in people who would be happy if their child learned a career through a skilled trade or through an apprenticeship, learned a trade through an apprenticeship. Likewise, an 11.6 percentage point increase if they'd be happy if their child went to a technical college. An 8.4 percentage point increase, they'd be happy if their child went to a community college. And then we were asking parents how much the high cost of higher education influences their decisions, and we found that more than a third of parents say they are deterred from their children going on to college because of the high cost of higher education, which helps to make the case that we need to make sure people realize there's lots of other opportunities and pathways to success. We also asked parents how happy they were with high school CTE programs, and we found a 9 percentage point increase in the percentage of parents who said they'd be very happy if their child took advantage of these opportunities we are making available in our schools, to almost 63% saying they'd be very happy. So if you're interested, there's a 30-page report that dives into all of the data. I didn't have time to go through all of it today, but you have all of it. You have it in your handouts. It's some pretty interesting stuff, but it shows that Higher Pass, along with, I mean, it's not just us. There's lots of efforts that are going on in the state to get this information in front of families. But I see that we are making progress as a group, and I want to be able to continue this work moving forward into the future. As part of our grant this year, we had the funds and flexibility to really work hard on partnerships. Nobody who works with youth really has enough money to do everything that they really want to do with Fidelity. So we've been able to reach out and build some great partners this year, including with the workforce development team at KBOR. We've got a new partnership with 4-H through K-State Research and Extension. We've been working with the corporation Zello that 90% of Kansas school districts pay a subscription fee to have to do career development in their schools. We've got a great relationship with the Office of Registered Apprenticeship at the Department of Commerce. Just last week, I did a training for JEG-K to get our information in front of their teachers. We're building a good relationship with the CAPS network out of Blue Valley, who does a lot of work also in the sphere, and we're trying to support one another's efforts. And then most recently, we've built a good partnership with Love Kansas, and we're going to celebrate people who have moved back to the state and the jobs that they've taken that help them make that jump. So we're really trying to work hard to support efforts across the board to maximize all of these investments. Likewise, we've built great partnerships with all the 4 PBS affiliates in the state who have, without any payment, have been playing all of our materials on air and have built a great partnership in helping us reach more families. And before I close, I do want to point out the new partnership with 4-H, because this is our first foray into student-generated content, which is something I really want to move into in the future. So where we actually excite and inspire kids to go out and do research and create content that we can put out through Higher Pass, and we can get in front of other teachers so that students are helping to create this information. So this year we've partnered with 4-H. We just last week at their program rally in Great Bend kicked off the opportunity for kids to create their own cool careers video. They'll be able to enter them in the state fair next summer, and the ones that win we will actually promote through Higher Pass next year. I don't know what we're going to get. We may get 5 entries, we may get 50 entries, but our hope is to refine this and then open it up next year. So this year will be just limited to kids who participate in 4-H, but our hope is to enter it a year from now so that any kid in the state can put together a video and enter it, and hopefully we can come up with a sponsor to give us some good scholarship prize or something like that. And just to talk a little bit more about where we want to go, if we can keep this program going. Right now, we're really kind of at the precipice of really taking off. We've worked really hard over 5 years to get this thing off the ground. We want to be able to produce more cool careers videos a year. We've been producing between 6 and 8. This year we had funding for 8. I don't know what's going to come next. We want to be able to continue to do more with live events. Like I said, I've got a pilot on April 9th and April 16th this year, where we're going to actually bring in 300 seventh graders and introduce them to jobs in their own community that fit into our 12 areas of emphasis. I want to create more videos. That's where kids are right now. They are consuming short form video. I want to be able to get more short form videos out. That's what we did in the fourth quarter when we really saw growth in our YouTube numbers and getting more kids to absorb our content. We want to do more with student-generated content. We want to continue to build our library. We've done some work into getting content put out in Spanish and added Spanish captions to all of our videos, and I'd love to be able to do more. We did one video that was completely filmed in Spanish with Foley Industries, and it was one of the most popular ones we've ever done, so I'd love to be able to do more of that. I want to continue to build more private business involvement, but it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time to find the right person at each of these companies to bring us in and to consider an investment, and we've got to figure out some sustainable funding for us to be able to do that. And then lastly, we've been on this kind of 1 year by 1 year path through a community foundation. If I know that this program is going to exist long term, we want to become our own 501c3 and be official that this is a long-term program for the benefit of Kansas. So with that, I hope I didn't go too long. There's a lot to say and a lot of work has been done here, but I'd love to open myself up for questions.
Thank you for the presentation, and yeah, that kind of flew by. I know you took longer than the 20 minutes, I think, but a lot of great information in there. So
I appreciate you giving me 20. I tried to do it in 15.
That's fine. No,
the other day.
We've got it. We've got the time, and so we might as well use it. Representative Clayton has a round of questions.
Yes, I do. So thank you very much for being here. First of all, I did go on your website. I took the quiz, the career quiz, and it did recommend public service, so that tracks.
Clearly that does not work.
So on tar water. So I would recommend all of you guys take it and sort of see what your alternate career paths might be. So mine included the service industry, which without which I never would have been able to put myself through college. And so I'll go back to that in just a bit. One of the things that I did notice when I was clicking on apprenticeships, we have amazing union apprenticeships just available in Northeast Johnson County alone, or Northeast Kansas alone. So for instance, sheet metal workers, pipe fitters, carpenters, all of those, and those are wonderful career paths. Have you been working with the labor union community to see about these connections? Because I know that they need workers as well.
Absolutely, and that's an area. I've met John Nave, who I know is a leader in that industry. We just met at the Apprentice Day event. I'd like to be able to do more. Yeah, I would love to be able to expand more into that. Shonda Anderson at Department of Commerce has been really trying to push me in that direction, and some of the videos I'm doing with them probably will feature businesses that are a part of the union trades.
Excellent. And so one of the things I noticed that you have a lot of metrics when it comes to pushing out the messaging, but what do you have, at least as far as actual career placements? So actual like student to job, what does that success rate look like?
I would love to have that. You got to remember, I've been really focusing on 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th graders for 4 years. So these kids are all still in the public school system.
Okay.
So it's been very hard to prove the ROI. All we can do at this point in time is show that we're trying to get this information out there. So that's why it was important to us to do that parent perception research, so we can see if we've made headway and what parents think about all these options. What will be interesting is 5 years from now, if we can start to see that. It's going to be hard not to just be anecdotal, because there's a lot of efforts going on, and I believe these efforts really complement one another. But I think we're really working hard and trying to build those partnerships to support one another.
And one question that I have about sort of the parent perception, you were talking about how the idea of parents thinking that a 4-year degree right outside of high school was the only option. You mentioned how that dropped. I'm going to assume that a lot of it is due to the exorbitant cost of college, but I want to caution here, I believe in upward mobility. I am a first in my family college student, and if my parents had been told college isn't for everyone, so sometimes I hear the phrase college isn't for everyone, but it's usually said by wealthy people to people who have less means. And this is America. We believe in upward mobility. Have you looked at again, you talked a lot about companies that have, tuition assistance and tuition reimbursement. I would urge you strongly to sort of do that. So the career to college pipeline instead of the graduate and just, simply go in as a worker, because I don't like the idea of that division where college isn't for everyone. Yes, it is. It should be. Otherwise, we are establishing class divides that are just not really American, not our thing.
Absolutely, and I in no means am trying to say that. In fact, I love the stories that we were able to film through some of our investors that tell stories of people who went straight out of the workforce, such as at Spirit Aerosystems. I interviewed a woman who's now got a PhD, and she helps resource materials for them all over the world, and Spirit paid for her to get all of her post-secondary education. So we really just want to show kids that there are lots of different paths they can take. Every one of them is perfectly acceptable, and they have the opportunities to continue to grow throughout their career. These videos I'm working on right now with apprenticeships, all of them talk about how once you get into that workplace, you can continue to go on, that we've got all those applied degree programs now where you can get credit for your apprenticeship and transfer on to some of our four-year institutions now and go on and get your bachelor's degree, and how that is a way to get a foot in the door without taking out any student debt and get paid while you're going to school. So I don't believe we're promoting in one over the other, and I think we show that nobody does this. Everybody's career paths are like this. We have 187 stories on our site of Kansans that talk about how they got started in their careers, and I don't think there are very few that went from point A to point B.
Any other questions for the conferee? All right, so I have a few, and I'm going to disagree with my colleague that college is not for everyone. I graduated with a master's degree in business, and when I started my own business, I had no idea what I was doing, and they don't really teach you that in college. They teach you how to work for major corporations, and I would have been must-have. I'm a car guy. I like to work on cars. I like to build things. I would have been much happier if somebody would have delivered that message to me that those jobs pay what they do. I had no idea what they paid. So my first several years up here in the legislature, it was hard. I sold my business because I couldn't run it. And then it was hard to find a job and say I need the first 3 or 4 months a year off. So I built decks for several years while I've been here, and I'm much happier doing that than running businesses. So college is not for everyone, and there is a lot of money to be made in the trades. So just wanted to clear that up. You said that your initial round of funding came from Textron and the contractors, and I'm familiar with that. Are they continuing their funding with you?
My funding has been very uncertain these last 2 years, and so they've been kind of holding off. Plus, aviation is going through a lot of stuff right now. I think we all know about the Boeing purchase of Spirit. I've still got good relationships, but they are kind of waiting to see what happens through this cycle.
All right, and then
They know I can't do it just on their investments.
Okay, and then Stormont Vale, are they out also?
No, Kansas Contractors is the one of the three that still are giving us money every year.
Okay, good. I know I talked to them when I first was introduced to you 2 years ago, I think, and they were very happy with your program, and they were happy with what was going on, and they did say they were going to continue that. I'm glad they did.
Yeah, they've been great support.
On the ESSER grants, can you tell us the first round and the second round, what did you receive?
Sure. The first round, which we received in the spring of '21, we received $300,000 a year for 3 years. So we had a $900,000 grant over 3 years. And then last year, we received a $1 million grant, which is for 18 months that has to be expended by January of next year. But because I wanted to see what we could do with a higher media budget, we are spending $900,000 of it by the end of June this year. We decided we wanted to see what the results could be with a real media budget to reach the entire state.
And are you able to tell on your hits, your 500,000 hits on YouTube, who's watching these videos as far as, do you collect demographics on the viewers, or do you know where they live?
We do the most we can. Over the last 5 years, Google and all of the different tracking softwares have protected people's privacy more and more. The new online streaming buy that we just start next week, we actually just inserted a pixel on our website, so we'll be able to tell how many people saw our ads and went to our website within 7 days. So I'm really excited. We'll do that for the next 90 days to see what we get. So a lot of it's been correlation, but we definitely, that's where I know that 18 to 30-year-olds are reaching us, is because of the ones that don't have their privacy settings set up so high. We're reaching a large percentage of that age group. We collect everything we possibly can.
Okay, Representative Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one quick question. I was just looking at this and thinking that what's true for Kansas is actually very true for our region and many other states. It seems like it would be more economically feasible if there were regional partners and it wasn't just a Kansas program, because I actually think it would work over a larger area. My concern is that it's a fabulous website, but it's going to be expensive to maintain over time. And it just seems like that there might be duplicative options out there nationwide, and that we should pool our resources instead of silo our resources. So I didn't know if you had looked into that.
Actually, when we first started, the reason we didn't put Kansas in the name is that we thought this would be something that we could take beyond the borders. But all of the investors liked the fact that this was keeping kids in the state of Kansas. And as we have been applying for grants and working with the state of Kansas, it was much more attractive to people that this was a stay in Kansas program than it was a, ooh, let's talk about jobs in St. Louis that might send our young people out of the state of Kansas to other parts of the country. And so I have actually gotten better traction keeping this as a Kansas-only initiative. I've struggled because a lot of our foundations only want me to spend money in certain areas of the state. For example, the Kauffman Foundation really wants money just spent in their 6 county areas, or the one in Western Kansas, Northwest Kansas. Dane Hansen, thank you, sorry. Dane Hansen Foundation did do a small grant with us last year for some teacher ambassadors, but they want us to be able to prove we're only spending money in their 26 counties. And ultimately, what we are doing, being internet-based, it's serving kids all over the state of Kansas. And people, when they see people they know, they share it on social media, and more people see it. And so I feel like commercially, as a business owner, I probably maybe could make more money putting this out on the private market and competing against other large software companies that are doing similar things. But what's unique about Higher Pass is that all the businesses are in Kansas. We're customizing all the information to be Kansas focused. And when kids see these stories, they're not hearing about kids in California who do these things. They're hearing about kids in their own neighborhoods or that are just across the county. And I think that makes it resonate, and that's what gets teachers excited. It doesn't seem so far-fetched when you're telling the story of somebody who went to Fort Hays or Wichita State than if you're telling about people who got their training in a whole nother part of the country. So we will see what happens long term if we're not successful in gaining funding and we can't move forward and find other ways to keep the program operating. We may have to look at expanding beyond the state lines. I've had many offers to introduce me to people at the Department of Education in Missouri, but I've really tried to keep this as a Kansas initiative. I've kind of fallen in love with it being a Kansas-based program. As someone who grew up in the state of Kansas, I really thought that I'd have to leave Kansas to be successful, and I'm very pleased that I've been able to start a successful 20-year business without having to do so, and I want to be able to plant that seed in other kids' minds.
Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I share a similar background as the chair. And as I'm searching through your website, I took your test. Very good. It's all,
it was meant to be very simple and quick.
What did it tell you needed to do? I want to know this.
Well, I was upset they didn't have the tools that I like to use. The question says, what tools do you like to use? I didn't see explosive devices or military-grade weapons. So I
did a Zello for that.
Well, that lack of an option led me further into your website, and I did find an opportunity for employment in the military, which I was very delighted to see. That is a huge factor in my life, and it has affected me in a mostly positive way. They don't offer very good vacations, but they do offer a lot of skills, and I like to see that. I am curious how you go about finding private funding. How do you go about finding other donors? I mean, I don't want you to look like a NASCAR race car or anything, but I'm just curious. Like, I would love to see things on there like the Kansas National Guard, who is Kansas exclusive, and they have a huge recruiting arm or recruiting presence across the state. That's an excellent one. And other Kansas exclusive entities. We know we have them. I'm just curious as to what built out Kansas. Excellent, yeah.
That's ultimately why I want to make sure that we have some stability so that I feel comfortable starting our own 501c3 and we can actually bring on development staff to do that. I've spent an enormous amount of unpaid time over the past 6 years trying to make these connections with the industry, and in some cases to great success. Other cases, they get a lot of requests, and it's sometimes hard to get in the door, especially when businesses are trying to fill their jobs today. It's hard for them to think this is something that would get people in these jobs 5 and 10 years from now, which is why I think it makes it a really good fit for state funding. We actually made a partnership with a consulting company who really took it out and worked very hard. We brought in a few more small donors, but we really need to be able to make this and I need to have someone who lives and breathes and helps us build those partnerships, who's not wearing multiple hats like I am. So if we can figure out some sustainable ways, I think there's a lot more we can do, and I would love to have somebody on the ground meeting with businesses every day.
Well, I think we can all relate to unfunded time. I would love to learn more about that and see if we here as a network of folks can help connect you to other people who can.
That'd be fabulous. I'd love to meet with any of you who could help open those doors. That's how we got our first initial funders, were people who bought into the idea, who called people who knew people and got me in the door. And I've been really busy running it now, and for us to take it to the next level, we're going to need to do that.
We have one more question, but so how many employees do you have?
Employees. There are 13 employees at New Boston Creative Group. We have other clients. We are not solely working on this. This does not pay the rent, pay the bills. This helps us to do this marketing campaign and gives us some nice cash flow as a business. But we have lots of other things that our team is doing.
And so if you raise $1 million, how much of it goes towards your advertising efforts, and how much goes towards the company itself?
The breakdown, the media budget was $400,000 or $500,000, I believe, of that $1 million. There's a large chunk of it that goes to building partnerships, and then I'd have to break it down. It's really broken down into different deliverables that we're creating. It's very much a project-based budget. So each of the Cool Careers videos runs between $20,000 and $30,000 for us to create. Between travel and cost and video editing takes a considerable amount of time. So that's why we've been able to do about 8 a year. And then constantly doing all of the social media work takes a lot of man hours.
Okay, Representative King.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Kristen, are you on any other state websites where they can help promote this? A link to a website like Commerce Department or Ag or some other places?
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of different ways that we have been cross-referenced. There's school districts in the state who have us on their school district websites. KSDE has linked to us. Department of Commerce, I'm pretty sure, has links to us. And I lost my train of thought. There was one I was really going to say. Through KSDE, we built a great relationship with Zello. So if you're not familiar with Zello, that's what most of the schools are using to do career exploration. And with that relationship with Zello, they even have a homepage where now it gives them a link to Higher Pass to read Kansas-based stories. So that's why we're really working with those partnerships.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, any other questions? Going once, going twice? You're done. Thank you. Thanks for the presentation. I think we all learned a lot. All right, so I don't know that we have anything else on the agenda, but I do want to, since I didn't have an agenda in front of me, I skipped over bill introductions. So I know we have a couple of bill introductions. Representative Williams, Laura Williams. Rachel Willis, Department of Commerce.
Thank you, Chairman. Members of the committee. Yes, I have two. My first one is 25 RS 0812. This would be a pre-employment screening bill for the department.
Seeing no objection, we'll accept it.
The second one is 25 RS 0790. This is a star bonds bill extending the sunset and then working to make sure those current districts are held harmless as it relates to food sales tax.
Seeing no objection, we'll accept that one too. Thank you. Anything else? All right, Representative Williams.
All right, I have RS 0693, and this is concerning childcare.
Seeing no objections, we'll accept it. Any further bill introductions? All right, seeing none, we'll be back in our regular room tomorrow. Thanks to Terry Bernitas for being here today to monitor us and for helping fill in for Cindy's duties while she's out. Hopefully she'll be back next week. We'll see you guys tomorrow in the normal room. Thanks. We're adjourned.